Hi, Mark.
Well, hello, travelers, and welcome back to Roberto's Room. I wanted today to talk about a movie that, for me at least, has a really great place in my childhood, and one that, especially with all of the reboots and remakes and all the things that I think every studio, especially Disney, wants to be involved in today, this is one that kind of takes a look back at one of the greatest eras, I think, in Disney movie making. And it's not the 90s, it's actually the experimental age at Disney. And really, out of these movies, I think this is one that encapsulates everything great about this era. I'm talking, of course, about Disney's Dinosaur. Now, first, a little background. I'm a 90s baby, and although I've been told that I went to the cinema a lot before this movie, this is the movie that, for me, I remember being my first legitimate cinema experience. I remember it, and to this day, I can tell you the exact theater, I can tell you exactly how many times I went an obscene amount of times, and I know what you're thinking. Land Before Time did it best, or Jurassic Park did it better. But remember, I was 6 years old at the time. I wasn't able to go and see Jurassic Park, and I didn't really get to see Land Before Time until I think a lot later in life. And I'm kind of glad I did, because that whole Littlefoot's mom business, I don't think I would have done well with that. And in case you forgot, here it is.
Mother? Oh, please get up.
Right? Exactly. So I'm kind of glad that this was my first foray into dinosaurs, and really this was the start of an obsession. I really wanted to be a paleontologist when I grew up and all that. And believe it or not, I still have the VHS tape, the original VHS tape of this movie, and it is so played out that it's actually damaged. I actually managed to damage a VHS tape, and those of y'all that have had VHS tapes know how hard it is to damage a VHS tape, but I actually managed to damage it to the point where at the beginning of the movie, there's actually a warble noise where the music goes because it's that played out. Not only that, but, and I wanted to show y'all this, okay, just so that you know that I'm telling you the truth. I still have, current present day, a ton of books about this movie. I'll show you. So let's begin. The movie actually, from the get-go, and again, I'm trying to give you my point of view as a 6-year-old here, and kind of show you why I love this movie so much. So I have to go back there in my mind. But to me, this movie from the get-go takes itself seriously. Like, the Disney logo looks like something out of, Aliens. It takes itself seriously, I think, from the get-go. I think, honestly, the only logo that looks this cool, Disney logo that looks this cool, is the Atlantis The Lost Empire logo, where you knew, there's some stuff going down in this movie, guys. So, after that, you start to see these images, and you start to hear this beautiful score, which the score in and of itself is something that we need to talk about. It was composed by James Newton Howard, who composed probably your childhood as well. He did Treasure Planet, he did Atlantis The Lost Empire, he did Hunger Games, and he even composed Batman Begins and The Dark Knight with Hans Zimmer. And he really brings his A game here. I mean, I just listed a bunch of movies where, if you've heard the music of these movies, he brings it. And Dinosaur is no exception. I think there are two movies that, at least for me, I cannot imagine having another soundtrack than the one that they ended up with. And that is this movie, Dinosaur. I can't imagine this movie with any other soundtrack. And The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was scored by Harry Gregson Williams. Either of those two movies, that is a perfect score. I just can't imagine these movies having any other score than the ones that Such a great fitting score. Then you hear a voice of a narrator, which you will later learn is a character named Pleo in the movie, voiced by Alfre Woodard, who I cannot distinguish. Every time I hear her voice, I think about her in this movie, even though this is just a voice acting role. This is the voice, this is the character that I associate her with because of this movie. And as you see these silhouettes, you get something poking in that frame, which is our hero, which has still not been born yet. He's still in the egg. And we pan out and reveal the beautiful nesting grounds. Now, if you've seen this movie, you know how good this movie looks, which I want to know, Disney, why don't we have a 4K release of this movie yet? I mean, honestly, some of these visuals with the things that have been put out on 4K, we need this now on 4K. Like, we really do, because the visuals on this movie are phenomenal, and actually the way they shot this movie was kind of interesting. The whole movie was shot, they would shoot these clean plates, which is just backgrounds, and then would put in the animals, which I know really doesn't seem like all that interesting, but the cool thing about the way they shot this movie was that after they did those clean plates, because they wanted to create new environments, because we don't know, how the world really looked, back then, although it wasn't all the millions of years that I know people like to say, but it probably looked different than it does today. So what they ended up doing was they took all of these plates and they would take a Florida landscape and they would add mountains to it to create brand new environments and just really beautiful places that don't really exist on Earth, even though they're photographed, made up of places on Earth. It's a really cool way of doing new environments, and it really sells not only the environments but also the dinosaurs that go into them. I think that's why this movie looks so good, because they did, a lot of the Davy Jones method, where everything around him is real, so you're having to play to something that's real. And I think that a lot of movies today where you have these totally CGI environments miss out on a lot of that magic and a lot of that realism. And I think that's why this movie visually works as well as it does, and why, as a 6-year-old me, having seen these incredible visuals, it's still seared into my brain. So as we pan through the nesting grounds, we follow one of the young Parasaurolophus, and he goes into the woods, and I think he gets a little bit more than he bargained for, as a Carnotaur just explodes out of the woods. He's been hiding and he's stalking, and he is just foaming at the mouth, and he explodes onto the scene. And really, this is one of those scenes that I remember as a kid that had me just on the edge of my seat, which again, a lot of this movie does that. The filmmakers do a lot of really cool things here. They give you like a POV shot, and you see all the dinosaurs kind of running away from you as this Carnotaur is just speeding through, and it's the first time that you really get to hear all the great sound design that they came up with for this film. The behind the scenes stuff for this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Like, they did so much work with the sounds and try to come up with the different sounds. And I actually, because again, I've seen this movie so many times, I can actually hear sounds from this movie in other films. I actually heard, I was watching another movie just recently, and I heard a sound. I'm like, oh, that's a dinosaur sound design. They did so much work to make sure that you'd sell all of the environment, the sounds, and everything, and it is just amazing. And it only gets better, because what this scene leads into is perhaps one of the most gorgeous scenes in this movie. It's kind of interesting because the next scene in this movie actually pulls a Lion King, because the creators of this movie, and I'm pretty sure Disney as well, saw this scene that I'm talking about right now, and they're like, oh, this needs to be the trailer. Kind of like how Disney showed the whole Circle of Life scene at the beginning of the movie as the trailer. That was kind of the trailer for the movie. They did a very similar thing here where this whole scene, the egg travels, is a trailer for the movie because it is beautiful. You have this pteranodon that picks up the egg and is flying through everywhere, but before that the egg is going through water and you're seeing all these vistas, all these different species of dinosaurs, and it is just magnificent. Again, couple the visuals with James Newton Howard's just so beautiful, so chef's kiss of a score. And it's just, I'm telling you, it's awesome. Again, Disney, 4K, why haven't you done it? Come on, guys, let's go. Anyway, back to the story. The story really kicks off here, and the beginning, everything that we've seen up to now has really just been the prologue of the movie, as now the egg is dropped by the pteranodon who gets attacked. The egg drops, and we really don't see where we land until a few moments later that we discover some lemurs. We meet Yar, the lemur clan leader, and he's voiced by Ozzie Davis. Pleo, which that was the narrator back at the beginning of the movie, voiced by Alfred Woodard. Zinni, the wisecracking and love crazy, we'll get there, son of Yar, voiced by Max Casella. And Suri, Pleo's daughter, voiced by Hayden Panettiere. They discover Aladar's egg. They really don't know what to do with it. In Lemur Island, where they live, they've never really seen a dinosaur before, and all that they know is that the dinosaurs are meat eaters. And they're very careful. They're like, oh, no, we're going to teach him to hate meat. Which is kind of funny because iguanodons are herbivores, and the movie kind of plays up on this. Is it a carnivore? Is it not? I think for the kids in the audience, because the next scene we're immediately time jumped into the future, and an adult Aladar is chasing down the lemurs, and you're meant to believe that he is trying to eat them, and he actually swallows one, seems to swallow one, and we all we realize it's all a joke. But it's a really fun scene, and again, builds tension, although if you're not 6 years old, it's not really what it seems to be. Okay, but it's funny nonetheless. And Aladar, now voiced by D.B. Sweeney as an adult, is on Lemur Island. And I really love this section of the movie with the Lemur Island because, you really get to experience the culture in this part of the movie and really get to experience life, and you think, okay, all is well. This is kind of like the Hakuna Matata part of the movie where there's no worries, there's no cares, everything's fine, which something's gonna come in and ruin the movie because this is Disney. We can't stay at peace for very long, we gotta have conflict, so here we go. All of the festivities of the courtship ritual get interrupted, and we realize that a meteor shower is incoming, and I love the way the movie plays this up. There's a lot of silence and there's a lot of dread. You get to see the birds kind of flying away, which is the telltale sign that something bad's about to go down. And again, another masterfully done scene of this film. Partially because, just like most of this film, it was mostly done practically. They actually, they didn't shoot a meteor into the earth, okay? But they actually shot a lot of pyrotechnics and things, and they would put that onto these clean plates. So a lot of it was actually real. They did some, CGI work, but they tried to do as much on camera as possible, which I think is the way that it should be done. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love this movie as much as I do, because after watching this movie, and again, I saw this movie at a very young age, as I mentioned, I had no choice but to measure all of the movies that came after it and say, okay, is it as epic as this movie? And I think that the reason why I was so enamored with the visuals and the sounds of this movie is because of the fact that they tried to do as much of it on camera as possible. One of the great directors, actually the director of the first three Pirates movie, Gore Verbinski, he would say that CG is not a verb. A lot of people in the industry would say, don't worry about it, just CG it. And he would say, no, CGI is not a verb. We're going to do as much of it on camera as possible. And I think that the crew of Dinosaur really adopted that mentality, and they tried to shoot as much of it on camera as possible. So the meteor hits, you get a flash of light. It's a really intense atmosphere, and the horror, they start to realize something is not right, and they try to escape, but of course they're on an island, so there's only so many places they could go, and this island is just getting devastated, absolutely devastated by this meteor shower, and they're trying to run this way and that way. They can't get away. Their whole island's engulfed, and they have no choice but to literally jump for their lives and get away from the island as soon as possible. We see again all of our lemur family that we've been introduced to, and Aladar just running away from this island. And after this scene, which again is a very intense scene, you get to sit with the emotion of what has just happened. And again, this is why I love this movie so much, because as much action as there is, and there is a good bit of action in this movie, good bit of tense moments, there are these great, beautiful moments where you just get to sit with the emotion of what you have just seen and really live in that emotion with the character, and you really get to feel with the characters, which I think, again, lends to why, at least for me, this movie has made as big of an impact as it has. So alone, Aladar and the lemurs start making their way through the mainland. They've never been on the mainland as far as they know, and everything is alien to them, foreign to them. And as luck would have it, the first thing they come across is, as Lex put it,
Are those meat-eating Metosauruses?
a velociraptor. And I actually like that the velociraptors here, no shade on Jurassic Park, but the velociraptors here actually look like velociraptors. They're small, and but they're still deadly, and they start to attack. No doubt they are hungry. I mean, who wouldn't be after that meteor shower? And they come after Aladar. Again, another great chase scene, and really, tense scene where Yar almost bites it. But then they start to go away, which is kind of weird, and everybody's kind of like, okay, what's going on? So out of the dust clouds appears a whole herd of dinosaurs migrating to the new nesting grounds. They're led by Crone, who is played by Samuel E. Wright. And if you've heard that name before, it's because he played Sebastian in The Little Mermaid. I know, kind of funny that, because he plays such a mean, nasty character here, but it's so funny to know that he played Sebastian as well. But you also get to meet Bruton, played by Peter Siragusa, and Nera, played by Juliana Margulies. And as we go through the herd, we meet Baleen, the last brachiosaur, and I love her voice. She's played by Joan Plowright, and Ema, who is just an ornery little old Styracosaur, played by Della Reese, and Earl, a just puppy dog of an ankylosaur that just makes noises. And he's adorable. Again, he's a puppy dog. And all these three, Baleen, Ema, and Earl, they're in the back of the line. They are, the slowest of the bunch, and they're just trying to keep up because
we're being driven unmercifully.
By who? Crone, the herd's head honcho.
Trying to get to the nesting grounds. One thing that this movie does well is, even though you are on this journey through the desert with the characters, a lot of it, of the actual desert travel portion, is played in montage, where you really get to just live again in the moments, but in these beautiful visuals and with a great score. I love this montage of the dinosaurs all going across the desert as they're trying to reach a watering hole in the middle of their journey in this vast desert, dry and arid as could be. You really feel the heat come through the screen as you're watching this. So it's just really, really awesome part of the movie. And all the while, you get the predators. They're just back there, just waiting for someone to drop. And a few actually do drop. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of just angst because you want them to get there. You want to arrive wherever it is they're trying to go because they're trying to cross this desert, and they play it up as, this is like the biggest leg of the journey. And one thing that this movie does really well is it lets you wallow in the peril of the dinosaurs. From the constant thirst that the herd feels to the brief glimpses of the predators lurking behind to pick the weak members of the herd off, you really feel the dread that these animals feel just to get from point A to point B. And then, even when they get to where they're going and it's supposed to be this beautiful oasis, they find that it's just dry and the meteor explosion has just completely decimated the lake. There's no lake, it's just dry riverbed. And they are all just beside themselves because they thought, okay, this is going to be a respite, this was going to be a break, but nope, again, we are just getting hammered away here. And Aladar and the others really start to lose hope until Aladar begins to hear something gurgling underneath the ground. And I wanted to take an aside here for a second and talk about a few years ago, Chris Pratt, while he was doing some press for Jurassic World, actually was interviewed, and the interviewer asked him this question.
Were you a dinosaur kid?
I was a human kid, which is different than a dinosaur kid. But as a human kid, I was interested in dinosaurs. Yes, I was.
And it's funny because listening to this question, I immediately, went to my 6-year-old mind watching this movie and thinking, yeah, I know exactly what a dinosaur kid is because that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, was a dinosaur. Later, I wanted to be a paleontologist when I realized that I couldn't be that. But I genuinely wanted to be a dinosaur because of this movie. I loved the days when Disney created these genuinely interesting characters, and we really used to be spoiled for choice back then with characters like Aladar, Milo from Atlantis, Tarzan, and even Stitch, and in the case of Aladar, you really get to root for him and want him to succeed. And I think the finding water scene after they have crossed this desert, there's no water, and him using his intellect to find the water, I think, again, 6-year-old me here, yeah, it was really awesome to watch this scene. And then, of course, all the herd, they get anxious, they see the water, and they just start trampling each other. And Nira, who is the sister of Crone, starts to notice that, this guy's a little different. He's not as selfish as the rest of the people here. And again, they're in a life or death situation, but he's still looking out for everybody else. While they're trampling towards water, he is trying to take care of, the older dinosaurs that can't take care of themselves. And it is just a great moment, and it starts really this bond between them, this romantic bond between them that will be explored a little bit later. Kron, of course, notices the bond and immediately gets
emotional damage.
And then, because we can't sit at a quiet moment for very long, although what follows that whole rampage for water was a really beautiful moment with Aladar and Nira and some 2 orphan iguanodons. Beautiful little moment. Great, beautiful little moment. But of course, we can't live there because the Carnotaurs are coming. You hear them in the distance. And Prone, because he is now, he's clocking Aladar. And of course, now he decides, as they're moving the herd, to give Aladar his own piece of
emotional damage.
And I always found it funny that how Ema described the Carnotaurs in this scene. She always used to say this:
a mouthful of teeth with a bad attitude. Let's go.
And I just found that really funny. That they're genuinely funny. Like, the characters are genuinely funny. And I think this might have been just some ad-libbing. Maybe it was in the script. I don't know. But just a genuinely funny moment that always got a laugh out of me. So Aladar and his group get left behind, and they're really forced to find their own way through the wilderness, away from the herd. And they actually come across Bruton, who has seen better days, and he is just bleeding out. He's in just very rough shape. And they find a cave where they're gonna rest the night. hopefully get Bruton a little bit of TLC, and of course, the Carnotaurs come to disturb the peace. They realize that they won't all get away, and there's this really tense moment where they're trying to figure out, do the Carnotaurs see us? And they're poking their head through this waterfall, and then they play it up really well, this really tense moment. The tension's building and building and building, and then they're spotted. Boom! Explosion of action, and the Carnotaurs are coming, and everyone is just running for their lives. And Bruton, realizing that, yeah, we're not all getting out of this alive, decides to sacrifice himself for the good of the group. And I love this scene. I actually love the character's arc, because he goes from somebody that really doesn't care about the weaker characters to then becoming one of the weaker characters, and then having to be taken care of by the people that he perceived as weak, to then sacrificing himself for those people. It's such a great arc for this side character, Bruton, that, again, another great reason why I love this movie, because they have not just arcs for the main character, but also for the side characters, and you really get to see who you identify with. And I love movies like that, where you have, you know, pick of characters to choose from, and that you can see how they go from point A to point B. Some don't, you know, move in this great arc, but when they do, the ones that do, it's just really good to see. And this is the kind of storytelling that Disney used to make. And this is why I'm making this video, because Disney used to make really good movies. I'm using this as an example. You could have your pick of the litter of all of the movies that Disney made back in the day, with great arcs, with great lessons, like Emperor's New Groove, of an emperor that, you know, went from spoiled little brat to someone that genuinely cared about people, or Milo Thatch from Atlantis, who was just a kid that nobody respected, who, you know, came to save a civilization. All of these really great arcs with really great characters and fantastic movies. And today is just sorely lacking. But I digress. So as they venture deeper, the group finds a dead end, and they can sense that the nesting grounds are literally on the other side of this dead end, but they can't get to it. So they start trying to literally just throw their bodies at this wall, and nothing works. And in a rare moment of just discouragement, Aladar seems to give up, until Baleen, voiced by the amazing Joan Plowright, has just a beautiful monologue and encourages not only Aladar but the other characters to join in, and together they
tear down this wall,
revealing the nesting grounds on the other side. But the rest of the herd had not arrived yet. As they explore, they realize that the whole mess with the meteor shower has caved in the entrance, and they are not going to be able to get in. And so Aladar goes to warn them that he's found another way. And this is where we get to like the juicy part of the story. So Aladar goes to the herd, since they don't even know about the cliff on the other side, and Aladar realizes that if they go off, they're literally just gonna be a pile of dinosaurs literally on the other side of this cliff. But Crone doesn't listen, and Aladar, because he's wanting to make sure that everyone gets there safely, challenges Crone. And Crone, hearing the negative self-talk in his head,
you're insecure,
decides that he can only go one direction. And of course, we get a fight between these two characters, and it's actually a really good fight. But, you know, Aladar has never fought in his life, he never had to, and just gets manhandled or dino-handled by Crone in the worst way possible. And it is only Nira that breaks up the fight in a shove. And then Crone, trying to figure out, okay, what in the world just happened here? I was winning, and then all of a sudden I get knocked down, and now I'm suffering from
emotional damage.
Is there left as Aladar and Nira are walking away. They're leading the herd away, and straight into the Carnotaur. As of course, again, we don't get any rest in this movie. It's just peril after peril after peril. And of course, the Carnotaur is coming. He is hungry, and he is just charging. Everyone starts to panic, but Aladar has had none of it. He is done with it, and he says, you know what? Nope, we are done here. And he starts charging back at the Carnotaur, and it is awesome. Like, guys, this is again, 6-year-old me here, hype. This is just this whole scene of all of the dinosaurs rallying together and fighting, the Carnotaur. This scene had 6-year-old me looking like this. And soon the herd joins in and manages to fend off the Carnotaur. But then, of course, Crone, who is trying to clamber up this cliff by himself, no doubt in his mind, singing,
"'Cause I'm all alone, there's no one here beside me."
And then the Carnotaur goes to pick him off. Aladar and Neera give chase to the Carnotaur. Of course, they can't just leave Crone to die, and they fight. Crone just gets absolutely ragdolled by the Carnotaur, and it all culminates with Aladar pushing the Carnotaur off this cliff as he's almost, dragged off the cliff with him. But of course he survives. Crone didn't make it. He got thrown into the side of a rock so hard that, he's done. He's gone. And so we get a nice little moment here of Aladar and Neera just embracing as we fade out and into the next scene of Aladar leading the herd into the nesting grounds. We close the film with another reminder of
the great circle of life,
as Aladar has new babies, and we get a closing narration from Pleo about the uncertainties ahead. And that is Dinosaur, y'all. And guys, I really love this movie. I think, to me at least, it's still... I can recite this movie line by line, and I love this movie to this day. I know it's mostly nostalgia. Who can... We all have our nostalgic movies that we like to revisit, and it's really easy to put on those goggles again of the first time you watched it and really transport yourself back to what you remember. And that's what this movie is for me. Every time I watch it, from the roars of the Carnotaurs to the beautiful scenery, the score by James Newton Howard, it just works. It just works. I know that, this, by a lot of people, it's seen as a middle of the road movie, but at least for me, it is a movie that I revisit every few months. Hearing the roars of the Carnotaurs to the rumbles of the meteor shower, it is a feast not just for the ears but for the eyes, as this movie it looks gorgeous, and you've seen some of the clips just in this video. I really encourage you to watch it because it is such a good movie. I got to really rediscover this movie recently when I got a surround sound system for the first time, and I got to hear the movie in surround because I hadn't seen it that way. It was only a VHS tape for the longest time, and it was almost like watching the movie again for the first time because of the new experience with the surround system. And it was great. Honestly, the visuals of this movie have me again saying to Disney, where is my 4K at of this movie? With all the movies getting 4K releases, where is this one? This movie was so popular back in the day that one of the rides at Animal Kingdom was redone to match this movie, and it's still there to this day, though sadly it was confirmed by Disney that it will be demolished soon. I don't know why.
Why?
This is one of those, beautiful Disney decisions that I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but you can still go and enjoy this ride. It's a great ride. Just like the movie, there's a lot of thrills in it, and it's one I love. But I guess that's a video for another day. So have you seen this movie? What do you think about it? I would love to hear your comments down below. Please leave a comment, a like, and please subscribe. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Roberto's Room, so please check me out there as well. And I'm going to be dropping a lot more videos, so just stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me today, travelers, and I'll see you in the next video.